Good morning and welcome to Science and the Mystical, the bridge between. Today's podcast is featuring Lady Jane Dance. And so the topic is appropriately called Dancing with the Powers Beyond. And once you hear her, you're going to totally understand. So I want you to meet Lady Jane. She'll tell us why the lady is there. And I love to call her that because she exudes grace and ease and flow. Jane is a medium who connects directly to the universe and spirit guides and angels. She's a natural born medium whose abilities really strengthened after a near-death experience a couple of times. And now she's a true gateway. She lives one foot in the real world and the other in the angelic realm, which doesn't mean she's crazy. It simply means that when you're with her, you really see that everything just downloads so easily and so quickly for her. And she's also an international phenomenon. She's been featured as a guest on such shows as Spiritual Talk, Beyond the Ordinary, Soul Talk Radio, Quantum Universe, or Conversations, and Your Divine Uniqueness. She has also had the privilege of being in a hotel paranormal television show or series. And there's so much to talk about. So with all that in her pocket, Jane remains real, authentic, humble, and a whole lot of fun. Welcome, Jane.
Hi, Maureen. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
You're so welcome. So we're going to have some fun today. How about if you start off by telling us about the whole Lady Jane part, which I only learned of once I knew you for a while.
Okay, well, it's kind of fun, actually. I wasn't born as Lady Jane, but a few years ago, my sister had bought me a kit from Chapters or Indigo or Kohl's, that kind of place. And you could fill out this form and become a lady or a laird. And so I filled it out and I became Lady Jane of Dunnans. And there's a castle in Scotland, I think it's pronounced Dunnans, that I own a square foot of land.
What?
The only land I own, but I own a square foot of land in this castle to preserve the castle. And so I have documented proof that I am now Lady Jane, and I can use that, I can use the name Lady for my entire life until I die. So I thought, well, why not? Why not be a Lady Jane? And it's just fun. It's just, and you're the only person that calls me Lady Jane. So.
I just love it. It's kind of not glamorous, but it's elegant, I guess is a better word for that.
Oh, I love it too.
Yeah. And I think that suits you so well. And if I might say so, you're very tall. In my world, I'm very small. You're very tall. So we make a fun kind of sighting on the street if we happen to be together. But you're just graceful. And even though we both talked about how clumsy we can be, but there's something about you. So it's so fitting.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So life hasn't always been real sweet for you. You've had some real big challenges, and man, oh man, could you please share about that journey with us?
Certainly. Years ago, I went to a medium and she told me that people look at me and think I've had an easy life. And I told her that they would be completely wrong. And so I share about it quite a lot. So I am a cancer survivor. I had leukemia. I was diagnosed with leukemia, AML, acute myelogenous leukemia. The middle word might be said wrong, not sure. But I was diagnosed with it in 2000. I was getting, at the time I was working as a massage therapist, and I was getting large bruises on the insides of my legs. I would brush my teeth and only blood would come out. So my gums were receding. I was getting 20-minute nosebleeds. I was sick all of the time. And then I was diagnosed with leukemia. And I remember when I was diagnosed, I was in the emergency room in Calgary, and the emergency room was really busy, and there was a nurse holding my file, and a more emergency case came in, and she threw down the file to go and attend to the emergency coming in. And so I picked up the file and I read it. And you probably shouldn't do that, but I did.
Oh, well, good on you. It's your
Oh yeah, I'm
stuff,
like, it's
right?
my file. I'm
It's
gonna read it.
me. Yeah.
And it said, check. Now this might be where you come in. Check leukemic blood flow or something like that. And then just then I knew that I had leukemia. But to be honest with you, I was never one of those people that questioned why. It was more of a relief, as strange as that is to say, but it was more of a relief that I was diagnosed with cancer, because I had all these odd symptoms coming up, and I don't know, I just felt relief that I had leukemia.
Was it because there was a title put on it and now you could name it, or
I think that
otherwise?
that's what it was, because as a child growing up, I had cold after cold. Then I'd get a flu, then I'd get better, then I'd have bronchitis, then I'd get better, then I'd have the flu, then I'd get better. Like I was constantly a sick child. Um, and so like I feel all of that was leading up to the leukemia. So to have that label put on it, it was a relief.
Yeah, there's some comfort in knowing and having, I guess, a label or an explanation for why you are the way you are and why
Oh,
it's
definitely.
going the way it's going. That's like so alarming to have some of those symptoms. My goodness. How long did those go on for?
The symptoms,
Yes.
I don't really know. I don't really know. I remember being in high school. So that was in 2000, and I remember being in high school, which would be the um, the late 80s to the early 90s, and I remember having 20-minute nosebleeds. So it's very possible that my body was, I just heard the words, turning sour, you know, as I was leaving high school or as I was in high school, so the symptoms, they must have gone on for years before the diagnosis came.
And lots of times we don't even know that the symptoms are something for a long time, especially when we're young.
Yes, when I was the massage therapist in the year 2000, we had to run, we called a sensory journey or something like that. But basically it was running a tub full of water and putting essential oils in it for the client. And so we had to, like, I would lean against the tub, turn the tub on, and I would get bruises on the outside of my legs from my legs hitting the tub. And so for me to get inside bruises, and I mean like large, I'm not talking like tiny, I'm talking like large, 3 inches long bruises and not knowing where they're coming from. And I remember after being diagnosed, like the nurse telling me, or doctor telling me, I guess, that I had leukemia, I got to go home for the night. And I remember, and then the next day come back and move into the hospital. And I remember sitting, my friend at the time, we all went out for dinner, best that we could. Plus my dad had died from cancer in 96 from brain cancer, so a few years prior. And I remember we went to the keg in Calgary. I remember that.
Of course, it's Calgary.
Of course,
Yeah.
funny the things you remember. And I was sitting in my friend's truck. He had a bench seat, and underneath my right leg, it was prickly, like something was sticking in the seat. And I said to him, I don't know if I should use his name or not, but I said, there's something sticking up from the seat. And he pulled over, he felt the seat, and he said, no, there's nothing there. And I sat back down again, and he's driving me home. And again, I felt the prickle. like a pin sticking through the seat. And I said, no, there's something wrong with the seat. There's something sticking in the seat. And he pulled over again, felt the seat, was patting it down. And he said, nope, there's nothing there. And sure enough, I got back on the chair, on the bench. And, I'm like, no, there's something wrong with the bench. There's something sticking into my leg. And I got home and I went to the bathroom and I pulled my pants down and I had a bruise from my thigh to my knee on the backside. So my whole leg, or all of my veins and arteries or whatever they are, opened up and caused a bruise. So it wasn't actually something in the bench of the truck. It was my body had just created a big bruise.
So essentially it was breaking down rapidly.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So was it at that point that you went in and
well, the next day I had to move. No, the reason why I went to the doctor initially was because I went to a walk-in clinic. I was misdiagnosed by my own GP. All he had to do was take a blood test, and he told me that I had strep throat or something like that. And then he gave me antibiotics, and then I had always had strep throat growing up. And so then the pain and everything went away. And then after the antibiotics, the pain came worse. And I had this gland was swollen, quite swollen. And so I went to a walk-in clinic and that doctor misdiagnosed me. He told me it was, I don't know, probably strep throat again. And then by the third time I went to the walk-in clinic, my gland was it looked like half a baseball sticking out of my neck. It was huge. And the doctor said to me, oh, you probably have mono. Because he's like, are you tired? And I said, well, yeah, I've just come from work. I'm a massage therapist. I'm tired. And he said, oh, you probably have mono. And I said, oh, well, I've had mono before. And he said, oh, usually when you get mono, you only get it once. You don't get it again, but let's take a blood test. And I was at work at the spa when the doctor called back in the day when they would tell you the results over the phone. And all he said was, you have irregular cells in your bloodstream. You need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the emergency. And then I'm like, all right, I don't know what that means. It's not my terms. I'm not in the medical field, in that kind of way. And so that's when I went to the emergency. But I remember my boss at the time, I told her what the doctor said, and she said, no, you have to finish your day's work and then you can go to the hospital. I know.
What?
And I'm like, yeah. And so I talked to the doctor and he said, no, you have to go right now. And so I told her, I said, no, I have to go right now. And she said, no, you have to finish your day's work and then you can go. She was brutal. And then
what did you do?
I handed the phone over. I still had the doctor on the line and I said, oh, to my boss, I said, he wants to talk to you. And so whatever he said, she said, fine, you can go, but you have to come back when you're done. And I never went back because the next day I moved into the hospital for 3 months straight.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes we forget, being concerned for those around us and having heart for whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy
so
stuff.
Then my journey began. Yeah.
You had some pretty radical treatments for the cancer.
I did.
I remember you sharing, and I just couldn't believe anyone could survive that. It was just incredible.
I did. So the first time I had cancer, I believe it was in March 2000. And I was put onto a trial chemotherapy. I don't recommend that to anybody.
Yeah, right.
At all. And so at that point, I didn't know what chemotherapy was. Although my dad had died of cancer, he was in the same hospital ward as I was, a few years prior, but I don't ever recall, he had radiation. So I don't ever recall going to the hospital with him for his radiation. So I didn't really know what chemotherapy was. I think a lot of people don't know what it is unless they have it. And I remember the nurse hanging up. So I was given a central line, which is, or also called a heart catheter. So they put this, instead of doing IVs every 3 days, they put this, I was awake for it and I could watch it. I know.
Did it hurt?
Well, no, they froze it, and it looked like a worm going in, like it.
Oh.
I have a scar here. I know. That they put in this catheter and they wiggled it in, and then it goes into your heart. So, and then there's 3 lumens hanging off of the central line, so they can give you blood or chemotherapy or take blood out all at once, sort of thing, instead of doing the invasive IV. So I remembered that the nurse hung up like a rather large, I don't know, let's see if I can get that in the camera, rather large bag, maybe this big, of chemo. It just looked like saline solution, although it was not saline solution. And she said, yeah, you're on this trial drug 24/7. So when the chemo first went into my body, it was very cold. I could feel it going in. It was very cold because it would go into my heart first and then be pumped out everywhere into my body. And when that bag drained into my body, she would hang up another one. And then when that drained into my body, she would hang up another one. And it was supposed to be for 7 days, but my body only handled it for 3 days, I think it was, because it ended up burning me from the inside out. And, you know, I threw up all the time. It actually did more damage to me, which I know chemotherapy takes you to the brink of death, and then they pull you back. But if I had continued down this trial, I probably would have died from that. At one point, and this is going to get a little bit graphic here. I'll try my best not to make it disgusting. But at one point, like, you throw up a lot. At one point, the doctor said it looked like somebody took a cheese grater to the inside of my mouth, because you get so much mouth sores that you just stop eating, you know, plus you don't want to, because it's just going to come back up again. And this one time, luckily, I had a nurse in my hospital room. My family and I called it the hotel room, not the hospital room, because hospitals are not pleasant, but hotels are, you know, you go to a hotel for a vacation kind of thing. So this one time I started to throw up again, like you do. That's all I really did. Lost my hair, you know, lose your fingernails, everything. And thankfully there was a nurse in my room, and she handed me one of those kidney basins, and I threw up, and there's a gelatinous substance in the bowl. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what is that? And she's like, oh, sweetie, it's okay. It's just the lining of your stomach and your esophagus. And I'm like, I don't think that's supposed to come up. She's like, okay. Yeah, it was gross. You know, I still remember it like it was yesterday. So
no doubt. I mean, that's traumatic.
That is traumatic. And she just played it down. It was cool, you know. And I'm like,
I mean, it's awful enough that it happened to you. And with her kind of casual demeanor, it's like, oh, this happens to everybody. Like, how horrendous.
Yes. It was, you know, I didn't know what to expect. I remember, like, I lost, like you said, I'm tall, I'm about 5'10", you know. I remember going into the hospital, I think I weighed around 110 pounds. You know, back then I was underweight for my height. And then when I came out, I weighed, oh gosh, had it, weighed 90 pounds. I remember holding up my pants, holding up my jeans, because you just can't keep anything down. You know, I was on one drug after another. I was on one, I had one, oh my gosh. one issue after another. I was on antibiotic after antibiotic. You know, I was on this one medication that was called, nicknamed Shake and Bake. And I don't know what it was for, but as soon as it went into my body, luckily my sister was in the room visiting. My I seized. All of my muscles clenched up. Um, my jaw, everything clenched up automatically. All of my muscles just clenched, tightened up. I don't know what the word for that is. Um, and my body started to shake, and I couldn't move. I was having a seizure. Fully aware that I was having a seizure. I think the only thing that worked in my body that could make sense of anything was my eyes and my brain. I knew I was having a seizure. And my sister went and ran and got a nurse who gave me some sort of medication to stop the seizure. And I guess what usually happens is your body starts seizing, and then your body bakes. And they call it shake and bake. And
So this is intentional.
this is intentional.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Luckily, whatever the nurse gave me prevented me from baking. But for, I would say, at least 2 or 3 weeks after that, I could not move. Nurses had to roll me over because my muscles were so sore that they had to physically roll me over or physically take me to the bathroom because I was in so much pain from my muscles contracting.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you hear that part of your story, it just amazes me that you are who you are today and that you function very beautifully. You do have some residual things that you deal with. Yes. Are you willing to
I
share
do.
that?
Oh, yes, yes. One thing that is minor is my hair. So I've lost my hair twice because I got sick in 2000 and 2001. And I just, and so my hair used to be really thick. And although I got my hair done the other day, it's not as thick as it used to be. So that's minor in comparison. But the other thing that I have from time to time is I have chemo-induced IBS. So um, I'm very cautious with what I eat, because I don't know what is going to trigger it.
Mm-hmm.
I know stress triggers it. I know that.
Yes.
But food-wise, I remember coming out of the treatments and I would eat an apple one day and be fine, and eat an apple the next day and be in excruciating pain.
So very unpredictable.
It is very unpredictable. It kind of makes me scared of eating.
Mm-hmm. So we also, we have many things in common. We met at a psychic fair where we were both working. And then also I do live blood analysis, and we decided that might be fun to explore. Would you be willing to share your experience with regards to that?
Yes, certainly. So Spirit talks to me all the time, and I knew you had done live blood analysis, but I didn't actually know what it was. And I thought I just got this inkling to book an appointment with you. And so I did. And I remember when you first took my blood, you had to siphon it out of my pinky. I don't like needles because I've had a lot of them in my lifetime. But I remember you siphoning it out of my pinky. You kept pushing.
We had to encourage it to come out gently, but firmly.
Yes, definitely. And I just found it absolutely fascinating to see my blood cells and what they looked like my own personal ones, on your computer screen. So it was really fascinating that everything that I was experiencing, without me saying it, you saw it in my blood. So
it was pretty interesting blood, as I recall, the first time. And we went from so much kind of misalignment in the bioterrain to where that all got calmed down, and we got into a much nicer place after a bit of work. But you responded so well because you're such a good student.
You know, I go to chiropractors, like I go to, I've always believed in alternative medicine. Yes, I had to go through all the chemo and all the drugs and everything. I used to joke with my friends that if you turned off the lights, I would glow in the dark, you know, because of all the medication that was in me. But I've always preferred Eastern medicine rather than Western medicine, even before I got sick. I used to work in health food stores. You know, I've gone to chiropractors since 2007. I've been to naturopaths. And so for me to go to a live blood analysis, it was just natural. Because I don't even go to physical, I don't even have a doctor. I haven't had a physical for 20 something years, because I know my body better than a doctor who sees me for 20 minutes. And I believe in treating the whole body rather than a symptom. And so live blood analysis did just that. It treats the whole body and not just the Band-Aid effect.
And the value of being able to see what it looks like is huge.
Oh, yes. I could have stared at that screen all day long, you know.
We had fun, yeah.
I tried to look up some things that you saw in my blood, but that I couldn't, there was not on Google, you know, I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it's just fascinating. Like, I wish I did what you did.
Thank you. It's really a privilege to do what I do and introduce you to yourself from the inside out and not through shake and bake and seeing what your stomach lining looks like.
Yeah.
Very different approaches, but you know, my greatest wish is that the two would come together to support each other. So yeah. Well, you came around beautifully after, you know, having a little bit of direction. So that was so nice to see.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So talking about glowing from the inside out, I mean, there's another part of you that might be glowing, and that is your connection to this angelic realm. Can you describe your work? It's just fascinating.
I can do my best to describe it. So I am a naturally born medium. I've always seen spirits or heard them or talked to them, sort of thing. Ever since I was born. My first memory was when I was, I would say, 3 years old. And I remember looking up every time I would go to sleep. I would, you know, when you lay down, you look up and I would see 3 people looking down at me. And it really never bothered. It didn't bother me. It didn't scare me at all. But after, I've had a lot of experiences with spirits, you know, them showing up or throwing things, or there's been a couple times that they've scared me, you know, or they phoned 911, or I don't know, all these strange things. But after my treatments, I did, from what I understand, I temporarily crossed over. I don't have memory of it. Like, I have a feeling, but not an actual, I didn't see the white light or anything like that. But then when I came back, I gained a deeper, I don't know how to say this, but before I would easily connect with people who had passed away. And then after my cancer experiences, now I connect more with the angelic realm and people's spirit guides. And so just by getting the client's first name, then I get all the information.
So my understanding is that when you work with a client, you tap into their energies before, and yes, you get all kinds of downloads happening.
Yes. So before a session, I will sit down 30 minutes before the actual session starts. I will do a white light protection prayer for myself and for my home, because I do it out of my home. And then I'll say, you know, a prayer of protection for the client. Then I will ask their guides to come in. I give them permission to join me, you know, and tell them, you know, you got to do this and you can't do that, that sort of thing. Lay down the law. I lay down the
Yeah.
law. And then I start to receive impressions. I write down everything that I see, hear, feel, taste, smell half an hour before. And then when the time comes up for the client, I'll tell them what I've received. And then they start to ask questions. And for me, I don't have to go into meditation. Spirit can talk to me as like any time of the day. They're always there. So even if for myself, I will ask a question, I'll receive an answer. I don't have to go into prayer or meditation. They walk with me throughout the day.
Wow. And the fact that you're aware of it is amazing. And I think we've talked about this, where all of us have that opportunity to experience that and connect with that. So few know how, or even that it's there.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I think that really people, I know that people's angels and guides they really want to connect with them. They really do. You know, I think a lot of people think that angels are out of their reach, or they're not worthy enough to talk to the angels, you know, or why would they come and help me, or that sort of thing. And all you have, like I just heard, we want so much more than that. See, even now they talk.
Mm-hmm.
And really, all people really have to do is just ask their guides to come in, ask their angels to come in, you know, give them permission to speak to them, or give them permission to ask for them to come into their life to help them with whichever area they want, kind of thing. And just trust. I know it's hard to trust in the unknown, but we trust in air, which we
True
can't
enough.
see, you know. We trust in the wind, which we can't
Yes.
see, but we can feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, really there is no excuse.
So what's the difference between an angel and spirit guide?
Okay, so an angel is um it is a being that comes in for protection, or comes in when you need some assistance or help. I can give you an example. This works every time. It always amazes me. So I have a little dog, and at times he will start barking. He'll bark at birds, whatever. And if I have a session going on and he starts barking, in my mind, I will ask the angels to sit with him and get him to stop barking. And as soon as I do that, he stops. Every time. He could be like
Amazing.
mid bark and he stops.
Wow.
So I've called on helper angels. If I have to do something and I don't know how to do it, I'll ask helper angels to come in and help me. And then whatever I need solving will get solved. You know, angels are more for protection, for help, for assistance, that sort of thing. And spirit guides are, from my understanding, they are people that have crossed over and have chosen to become your guide. So guides are there to guide us, you know. Funny, hey? So they're there to guide us. I feel like spirit guides are always with us. You know, they walk with us everywhere we go, and angels come and go, from my understanding. So, for example, my mom's mom, my nan, she crossed over and she's become my spirit guide. And I know this because other mediums that I've been to have announced that she's there. So, and her and I had a very close bond. So anybody that in life you've had a close bond to becomes a spirit guide. Plus, there's also spirit animals.
Yes, true
Yeah.
enough. So I just want to talk about, you know, it sounds like the spirit guide is someone that is connected to you in a familial way.
Correct. Yes.
Correct? Can it be, so it doesn't necessarily mean that dad passed away 20 years ago and still walks with me. It can be like really deep ancestral connection, lineage.
It can be, for sure. And, you know, perhaps your dad comes in when you need a particular when there's something particular going on in your life that he can help with. So
Mhm.
yes, it can be ancestral. It could be family that you've never met. It could be 16th century family, that
Mhm.
you don't even know who they are. But if you feel them, you feel their presence. And I know, Maureen, you're very sensitive to energies.
Yes.
Um, so it's very possible it could be ancestral. It could be, um, I have a friend that passed away in 92, and from time to time, I can feel him sitting in my Jeep, like he's coming for a ride with me.
Oh my God, I love those kinds of rides.
Yes,
You're never
you know,
alone.
no, you're never alone. And him and I didn't know each other that well,
Mhm.
but we had a connection. And from time to time, I know when Troy is sitting next to me, I'm like, "Hi, Troy," because I can feel him
Oh
as
my
I'm,
goodness.
you know. So yeah,
I
yeah.
I'll just share this little tiny story that is so similar to that. Is that I lived in a funeral home for a little while, and one of the young guys downstairs that was helping out the morticians and all that was just a wonderful, humorous kid, and he loved to be the one to go pick up the bodies because they would talk to him all the way back, and he had
Oh,
these
cool.
amazing conversations about the world kind of in between, when you're still definitely 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and just fascinating things. So it's just so fun.
It is. I absolutely love the spirit world. Like, I tell the spirit world all the time
Oh,
how much I love working with them. Like, I find it so fascinating that spirits can move things or speak. Like, I've heard my name called numerous times, or can manipulate electronics. I find it so incredibly fascinating. It's not scary at all.
I
I'm
love
always
it.
in awe of it.
So there's when you get a client that says, oh, this didn't work for me, you're not very good, you didn't pull in, Uncle Joe and Aunt Josephine, and no, you're terrible. And and I'm exaggerating, yet I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always think, is it the spirits aren't willing to come through, like it's just not coming through, or is it the resistance and the agenda that the client might have, or the expectations that are somewhat fixed? So can you speak to that?
Certainly, I find it's more like spirit loves talking,
Mm,
they do. I find that when there's a client like that, there's definitely resistance on their part, that they have an agenda, or it's a test. They're trying to test you to see if you are legitimate or not.
mhm.
Um, because I always believe what I hear. I always believe what spirit tells me, because spirit does not lie. They are definitely the truth. They always speak the truth.
Mhm.
um, so it's always coming from the client that um, they're holding the resistance, they're not allowing, or they're not believing, or something like that, but it's always coming from them.
Are there any clients that you just go, no, we're done, or no, I'm not the person for you?
Yes, there are.
Yes.
Yes, there are. I've been doing this for 3 years professionally, and I would say I've probably fired around 3 or 4 clients, um, because we have just not been a vibrational match, or they have been asking too much or contacting me too much. Most people who book a session with me, they will book it, and I don't hear from them until the day, like until we meet face to face or screen to screen sort of thing. But there have been others that have stepped over my boundaries tremendously, and that is spirit's way of telling me that I'm not meant to read them. Because I would say 99% of clients are respectful. It's that 1% that aren't. And so I have to let them go. I always give them, I always recommend other people, or the online directory to find somebody else. But I never feel guilty when I fired the client because it's not for my highest good.
Or theirs, essentially.
Or yeah, or theirs.
Right?
It's not for their highest
Yeah.
good either. So we're just not a vibrational match, and I can't meet their needs.
What's still missing for you?
Oh, geez, that is a good question.
You don't have to answer.
I don't
That's for
actually
another
know.
time. Like if you think about your life and, I mean, obviously there are ups and downs. You trekked through some incredibly difficult times. Um, there have to be things that cause doubt or more that we want. And you're someone that I know is cup half full all the time.
I'm just happy I have a cup.
Yeah, right. I
I'm just happy
know.
I have a cup.
Yeah.
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 Uh, well, I can receive messages for other people, but I can very rarely receive messages for myself. And that's why I come to you, Maureen, because you can always tell me what's next, or like the British medium, he can tell me what's next, sort of thing. So I'm really one of those people that I don't necessarily plan things. I just allow the universe or spirit to come in and give me what I'm meant to have. Like I don't chase things. I allow things to come in. So I really don't know what is next. But if you have insight into that, I would be okay with that.
Well, on this platform, what I do know is that sometimes we're called to wait, and it's excruciating. It's like, what? You forgot me. There's nothing showing up. And it's painful. It has a lot of painful points in it. We get all kinds of messages that redirect us, as you've had recently. And then voila. So can you, I'm excited about your next venture that you're up to.
Yes. So I'm really sitting in that in-between space right now, and waiting for the what's next. And I was on a show out of the UK called Spiritual Talk. September 21st. I was on the show September 21st as a guest, a show I've never done before, as that's usually how it happens for me. And it was a fun show. The host's name is Paul Bannister, and there was a second host, but he couldn't make it that day. And so it was just, as Paul describes the show, it's like going to the pub, chatting with friends, drinking a beer. Like it was so lovely and so much fun, different from all the other shows I've done. And off the air, out of nowhere, Paul asked me if I want to host the show with him moving forward, because his previous host had to quit. And I didn't even think about it. I just said yes, because the universe gives you opportunities, and if you say yes, then you get more opportunities. And so now I am the host with Paul Bannister of Spiritual Talk. And last week I did the first time as the host, which was awkward for me because usually I'm the interviewee and not the interviewer. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Amazing to think of that, just like out of nowhere coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely out of nowhere. And I received another opportunity at the end of this month. There is a new women's group in Victoria and area called Wine, Women and Wellbeing. And I was asked to be the guest speaker for the Halloween version. So for the end of October. So I know. Yeah. And when the organizer contacted me, she said, honestly, Jane, what you do scares me. Mediums scare me. And I'm like, oh, it's not scary. It's not scary. So yeah.
Yeah, I would. And what I love is that you are so not scary. And so when people experience you, right, you realize it's just another perspective on what you're actually doing or up to. And it's all part of the same. And I think
It is for sure.
you have the beautiful part that demystifies that perception of mediumship.
I was just actually talking to Paul before the show here, and we were talking about our show, Spiritual Talk.
Yes.
And so weird to say, but so wonderful to say.
Yes.
And he said, don't take this the wrong way, but you are a breath of fresh air. And I'm thinking, how do you take that the wrong way? But he said, your energy is 100% different from the last host that I had. He said, you're making so many people happy. And I'm like, I'm not even doing anything, because the last interview, I only asked 2 questions. I could only think of 2 questions because I didn't know what to say. And he said, even just your presence being there, you're changing the whole energy of the show.
So it's like it's rewriting itself just by the mere fact that you bring this really peaceful energy forward. That's so great. It almost
great.
feels like the show is going to get a whole rewrite in terms, or an updo, right? Because he's very brilliant at what he does. And
he is very much so. And people all my life have told me that I look like an angel, or that they're stressed out and they stand next to me and they become calm. Even Paul told me that. And where he's in England, I'm in Canada, I've had, people just, I lost my train of thought. I don't know.
Yeah. You bring the peace and the new energy forward into every space you go into. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I've just always been a very calm person. My mind is very clear. I often say that my mind is like a clear sky, sunny day with maybe a couple of clouds. But for the most part, I'm very calm, very centered, very much in control. And so I think that I see the world differently than a lot of people because I don't have that constant chatter. So maybe that's where the calmness comes from. I don't know.
Well, and everything has a nice sprinkle of humor.
Yes.
You're a lot of fun too, I must say.
I have very dry humor, but yes.
You do. It's very dry, but I get it. And it's lots of fun. Oh my goodness. Jane, our time has just flown. We could talk for a very, very long time.
Good.
Do you have one kind of word of advice or inspirational thing to share with people today?
Certainly. So I have this, anytime something is presented to me that scares me, what I do is I feel the fear of it, and then I just do it anyways, because I know that fear stops a lot of people, and it stopped me a lot in the past. But, if something scares you, that means that you have to do it. Lean into that fear and just do and experience and conquer whatever that brings you fear. Just
beautiful.
Keep going.
I've appreciated you so much as a colleague, as a friend, and have such deep respect for what you do for people from that place that is kind of, you seem so simple, almost too simple.
I know, it does.
Right? Yes. And I know you've been told that before. It's like, how do you, people want that density and maybe that mystique around it. And you're just so not that. I love that you refuse to fall into that bracket. Yeah. Casting spells and calling them in and making things fall off the shelf, but you make it real and you make it tangible and you make it welcoming. So that's what's so beautiful about you.
Thank you. I love being different. I celebrate my uniqueness. I celebrate being different. And I encourage everybody to celebrate their uniqueness, because we are not, as you know, we're all not the same blood type. We're not, the same, we're not put into the same body. We are different. We are individuals. And I really want everybody to celebrate them being different, celebrate their uniqueness
Absolutely. I
of who they are.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lady Jane. And I know everyone will enjoy listening to this once it gets out there. And it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Maureen. I've really enjoyed this.
You're
And
very welcome.
I look forward to seeing future guests on your podcast.
Thank you. And we'll have you back again, I'm sure.
Yes. Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.